Hello friends, it's Candence and welcome to my YouTube channel. In today's video, I thought I'd try something a little different, something I've never exactly seen before, probably exists, but I was gonna go through the fine world of Reddit. I've had a lot of experience. I think currently I have about 24 piercings. I feel like as not a piercer, but as a piercing enthusiast, I have a lot of knowledge that the regular piercing goer may not know. And a lot of these people who post on Piercing Advice have a lot of the same issues that you might have. And if you're having trouble with some piercings, you might get some knowledge from this. So let's get on into it. Oh my gosh, my ring light is like blinding me. So I'm not going to read the names of any of the users. I'm just going to read the post and then give my input. I don't think I'm going to read any of the comments or anything. So the first one up is, I took my nipple piercing out 3 days ago because it went through the areola. It was in only for a couple of days, and I was told that I don't have to wait for the previous scars to heal because the piercing will be going through a different place. I want to get it done this week, but I'm not 100% sure it's safe because other people have told me that you have to wait for 6 months to get it re-pierced. I've been through something similar. I had the same piercing and it was pierced a little bit too deep. So I don't know how deep your piercing is in the areola. You say you want to get it done this week. I think that's a little bit early. There's some things where if it's far enough away, you can get the piercing done even the same day you take it out, but there's other places where it depends on how close it is, like the nipple area. I think I would wait for that to heal at least a month or a month and a half. When I had to take mine out and get it re-pierced, they weren't like super deep. They were just a little bit too deep and a little bit like sinking in. They were just a little bit too deep in the flesh. Maybe it wasn't deep enough to where it was far enough away from the piercing site that it could get redone. But either way, the piercer told me to wait about 1.5 to 2 months to get it re-pierced. So I went back the 1.5 months later to get them redone. And I had no problems with getting it redone. Now, knowing from my personal experience, I would say that you would want to wait longer than a week to get these piercings redone, because the skin is really sore and it's a lot more sensitive. If your body's already healing the wound from the previous piercing, it's going to struggle to start healing your brand new piercing if you already have that one healing. So especially with such a sensitive area, nipple piercings tend to have trouble healing either way. So if I were you, I would wait at least till the scabs fall off. You don't want to have a sore area even farther away from your piercing and then your whole boob is sore. I think you would really want to wait it out just a couple extra weeks. This will also reduce swelling to the area. If there's a little bit of extra swelling, it could make the piercing a little bit crooked. So if you wait for all of that to go away and your tissue to heal up, it'll give you a better chance of getting the piercing properly done next time around, and it'll give you a better start to your healing to have that initial wound already healed. And also, 6 months is a little bit ridiculous. 6 months is enough time for an entire nipple piercing to heal with the bar in. A regular cut, like if you think of a cut on your knee, it doesn't take 6 months for a cut or a stab wound like that to heal. I think it'll only take 2 months top for the tissue to fully heal enough to get re-pierced. 6 months is outrageous. Okay, next one. Okay, so this one says, lost my septum ball in my sleep. Piercer is too far away to get a replacement anytime soon this week. Can a local shop help? I lost one of the balls to my septum ring in my sleep. I've had the piercing for a couple of weeks, so I don't have alternate jewelry. I'd go back to my piercer if I could, but it's his day off and he's also an hour away and I don't have time with my schedule this week to go by the shop. Should I call a local shop in my area and explain what happened? I'm more than happy to pay them the full price of the piercing just to help with the missing ball, but I feel like they may get offended or not want to help since they didn't do the original piercing and may not use the same jewelry. Any ideas? I'm not super scared it will fall out entirely, but I'd rather not risk that. There's a few things we can say about this. if it's a circular barbell, you would be pretty safe to flip the horseshoe. You'd be pretty safe to flip the circular barbell in your nose and it won't fall out. Your septum will keep it from turning out, as long as it's not falling out. Like as long as the circular barbell is tight enough that it's not just falling out, which typically it should be not really a huge problem. You should be able to flip it up and it'll stay, and that'll hold it in place till you can get to your actual piercer. If that's not an option, or if it's not working out, if you happen to have an O-ring from a stretching kit or something like that, like say if you really want to go to your piercer and you don't want to call another shop, you can go find an O-ring and slip it on, and that will hold it in place. And even if you think it looks scoopy, you can flip it up till you can go find your piercer, and that'll help keep your piercing in, and then you don't have to deal with the awkwardness of going to a different piercer. It wouldn't be that awkward if it's a great piercer. If you're going to a good piercer, they would have no problems helping you out. If you can find a good piercer in your area other than the one you initially went to, one that uses the same jewelry and stuff like that, I assume you got implant grade titanium. I hope so, for your sake. They would be more than happy to help you. I've interchanged going to different piercers. They don't even ask who did it. I guess if it's a certain place, they would remember specifically. The piercing places I go to, one of them has a bunch of piercers and one place only has one piercer. But even still, they're piercers. They're there to help you. A lot of places will change out jewelry for free. Some places will only charge a small fee, and then obviously you would just have to pay for the ball. Now, if it's a cheaper place, you would have to pay for a whole circular barbell, because I don't think they sell parts separately at really bad piercing shops. They only sell the junk piece of jewelry together. Good places will sell separate components, so you would be paying for 3 parts if you're buying a circular barbell. So it'd be no big deal. Go in, say I lost the ball, grab that spare part, and they'll screw it in for you and help you out, and it would be no big deal at all. Even if your piercer's not there at your piercing shop, if you're able to go there and buy a separate ball, that you could probably even screw on yourself. Actually, if you wanted to just go to the shop and pick up the extra ball, you wouldn't even necessarily need a piercer to screw that on. It just might be a little bit fiddly, but there's tons of tutorials on there, and if you'd like, I can make one. If you want to search around on YouTube, you could probably find a tutorial on how to screw on balls if it's a little bit fiddly. Use gloves. Gloves will help you get a grip. But yeah, I would definitely, don't be afraid to go to another piercer if you need help and yours is out of town or anything. Definitely go to a piercer. They're there to help you, and how can they be mad if you're a paying and tipping customer? They won't be mad at you. They will be happy to help save your piercing. Okay, next one. Which piercings would look good with my ear anatomy? Well, you have, let's see. So this is a completely naked ear, so you could get literally anything you want. With this one that has nothing on the top, it looks like, I think a flat piercing would look really good there. I don't know about the angles of the rest of your body parts. It looks like your tragus is pretty small, but you could probably still get it pierced, but you would have to have a really tiny gem for that. It's hard to tell with the anatomy if there's room for a really nice big doth piercing, but maybe getting a doth and then filling that space with a nice big... Actually, to me, it looks like your rook is pretty pronounced. It might be just the angle, but an awesome rook piercing would be pretty rad on this ear. Obviously, don't get pierced on 2 different ears at the same time. You gotta do one at a time if it's cartilage piercings. And then this ear, a similar issue with the angling, but this one has piercings to work with. I think if you're keeping the ring in there, I would probably try to go for maybe a tragus if you can. Maybe a couple more lobes. Then maybe a doth piercing on this ear. Maybe if you wanted to get a rook on the other ear, you could get a doth on this ear, and I think that would look really cool. Yeah, maybe the other ear could have a rook and a conch, and then this one could have a doth and a tragus, and then get a few more lobe piercings on both. That would look awesome. Okay, next one. 7-month-old second lobe. Jeez, I can't talk. 7-month-old second lobe getting swallowed. Other side has same length post and is fine. I don't sleep on it. Why did this happen all of a sudden? Let's see if I can zoom in. Second lobe getting swallowed. Sometimes even lobe piercings take a while to heal. Places like at the mall or really inexpensive piercing places might tell you that your lobe piercing will heal in a month or two, but that's just not the case. I don't think there's maybe some genital piercings will heal in a couple months. Maybe a septum piercing if you're a fast healer. Maybe a lobe piercing, but a lot of times lobe piercings can take a long time to heal. It just depends on your body and the circumstances. It's definitely normal that this could happen. Could be that a little bit of bacteria got in there, a little bit of buildup of dead skin cells, maybe something happened. Even if you don't think you slept on it, anything could have really happened to irritate it. It's just a matter of making sure you stay on top of cleaning it, especially if it's only 7 months old. It's still pretty freshly healed, so you might want to obviously clean it for the initial healing period, but when it's already healed, you'd probably at least want to clean it for the remainder of the year or something like that. That'll just help the fistula mature and then keep bacteria out of it until it can actually get to a fully healed stage. Because there's a bunch of stages to healing piercings, and I can make a video on that. It would be a lot to get into right now. I've had these lobe piercings since I was a little kid, and sometimes they get grumpy too. Usually it's my first lobes. I'm not sure why, but maybe because they were done with a gun, they just get a little bit grumpy sometimes, and it's kind of normal, and it can be a little bit scary. Usually butterfly backs, if it gets grumpy, you can just take the earring out, but when it's a post like this, and we're used to keeping your jewelry in forever, like I never take my jewelry out, it can be a little bit alarming when your really nicely fitting jewelry suddenly doesn't fit and it's getting swallowed and it looks like your piercing is way back to brand new. But in my experience, just a little bit of cleaning, baby it for a week. If you need to change to a longer bar, definitely don't wait on that. Get a longer bar in there and it'll heal up in no time, probably within a week if it was already acting fully healed before that, and you should be good to go. Can I go to the beach? My septum were pierced incorrectly and I'm taking it off Wednesday. Not planning on re-piercing it again. Can I swim in sea after 3 days? So this is a little bit of a gray area. It depends on when you were pierced. Is this a fresh piercing? Was it just pierced a couple days ago? In which case I might wait a little bit, but at that point, 3 days from now, you will already have scabs in your nose. Obviously it's not going to be a completely open wound like a fresh piercing would be. The scabs start sealing up the wound very quickly, so it would be likely that it would be sealed enough by the time 3 days has passed, but there's really no way to tell. Maybe 3 days is a little bit too early, but you might want to compare it to a cut. If you got a cut 3 days ago and then it has a scab on it, but it's not fully healed yet, would you go in the sea after 3 days? In that case, it's your call. Obviously, I'm not a doctor or a piercer, so it's on you, boo-boo. Anyway, I might skip some of these. Sudden swelling on a 10-month-old helix. What to do? I have had my first set of helix for years. 4. The second set for about 10/11 months. The second set is suddenly swelling. I replaced the jewelry from titanium to titanium. Why from titanium to titanium? Reputable store, no worries there. I changed them at about 9.5 to 10 months old because one side started to swell a bit and the bars were a bit dirty. The new bars are longer than the original. I can't get the original back in due to the sudden swelling. I've been using sterile gauze to soak in sea salt. 1 big mug of boiled water and 1/3 teaspoon of sea salt. That's too much salt in that water. First of all, you shouldn't really be mixing your own salt water anyway, but 1/3 of a teaspoon is definitely too much. It's only 1/4 of a teaspoon. There seems to be no infection, no crust, no blood, not sensitive, just swelling. Suggestions are appreciated. No tea tree oil. That stuff is terrible. Unfortunately, it's kind of difficult and pretty expensive to get pre-made sea salt solutions. So if you have to make your own saltwater solutions, what you should really be doing is getting distilled water or bottled water. I prefer distilled water if I were to mix my own. Usually you can get a gallon and then you can look up the ratio. I'll probably look it up for you and put it on the screen somewhere here. And then just fill that, and then you can just literally, once that's mixed into the gallon, you can just pour your gallon into a little shot glass or something and just heat up exactly how much you need. You don't have to keep mixing salt every time you want to clean your piercing. So that's one thing you can do. The extra salt in the water is going to dry out your piercing and potentially irritate your piercing. It's too much salt. The point of a salt soak is to create sort of a saline solution, and this is to help with an even exchange of fluids. It's supposed to be, I think it's called like isotonic or something. It's basically supposed to match the salt levels in your body and in your bloodstream, so that way as you soak it, there's an even exchange of fluids, instead of like, now that this is too salty and your ear's not, it's going to create a little bit of a harsh reaction. So you want to make sure you're not putting too much salt in this water, and 1/3 of a teaspoon is definitely too much. 1/4 is all you need if you're going to do that with a cup of water. And you want to have like more accurate measurements when it comes to this stuff, because that could be the cause of the sudden irritation. Okay, so you said that the first barbells you had were a bit dirty. That leads me to believe that you weren't actually cleaning them very well. You say there's no infection, no crust, no blood. It looks like you probably weren't cleaning the piercings very well. If your old posts were dirty, you should be making sure that you're cleaning them off, not just holding gauze on there and then letting it be that. That's basically what you should do, but every once in a while you want to go in there and make sure there's not like an excess amount of crud. If there's enough to where the point where you had to change your bars because they were dirty, that's a little bit bizarre to me, and there's definitely could have been bacteria in there, or even if it's not like a bacterial thing, there could be like, if there's a chunk of crust like crusted onto the piercing and the piercing moves slightly into the fistula, you can suddenly get a lot of irritation in the piercing, which will cause excess swelling. So it's possible that your ear is still trying to recover from that, and sometimes it can take a few months to go back to how it was before that. I would just keep up with the cleaning, lower down the salt on that. Since you say you can't get saline solution, I would try to get distilled water or bottled water, mix up the proper ratio that I'll leave on the screen and I'll probably put in the description for you. And definitely just baby it. 10 or 11 months is not healed yet for a helix piercing. Usually cartilage piercings will take 6 to 12 months to heal. For a lot of people it can be closer to 12 months, especially if you're saying you got both pierced at the same time. Since you said 2 pairs, that leads me to assume both ears. So that means anytime you've slept on one or the other, you've set back healing that little bit more, even if you didn't notice then, it could have caused some sort of reaction. You're going to want to make sure that you're really staying off those ears. It's perfectly normal that they're not healed yet, especially if you've been setting them back slightly every once in a while and having some crusty jewelry in there. So just keep it clean, baby it. Don't expect it to be healed for another 3 months maybe. Just because it's 6 months to a year, a lot of people don't heal until even later than a year. Some people's helix piercings take 1.5 years or 2 years to heal. It just depends on your body and the conditions, like especially that you got both sides done at once. It's definitely possible that the irritation from sleeping has caught up to you and that's why you're having issues. So that's why next time, definitely only pierce one ear at a time, but for now, just baby them. Okay, I'll probably try to do a couple more or something. I don't know. Okay, so this one says, not sure how I feel about my nose piercing. I got it almost 2 months ago and I want to change it to a hoop, but the placement just seems off. IDK if that's just me being my typical overthinking self, of if it's actually not in a good spot. Help please. Okay, so it's kind of in the center of the nostril. I guess typical nostril piercings are towards like the tip of the curve of your nose, but really nostril piercings are very subjective. Just like you saw in my positive piercing reaction video, There's mantis piercings that can go towards the tip of your nose. Those are technically nostril piercings. They have high nostrils, which are up here. I have 2 nostrils. They're both nostril piercings. They're both done properly. And this side, you know, my nose is crooked, so I think this side is even a little bit further. So they're all in sort of different spots. It's really up to you. What do you think looks good, and what do you want your nostril piercing to look like? So if you're thinking, hey, this is in the wrong spot, maybe you want to get it re-pierced. Another option is you can get a second piercing. I like 2 piercings. I like the more the merrier. But another option, if you think that one's too far back, you can always get a second piercing forward. The main thing is, in terms of placement, because they said about the placement, the main thing about the placement is it's all up to you. Is this going to irritate you for the rest of your life? Are you going to be happy if you keep it 3 years from now with the position of it, or is it always going to bother you? I had a nostril piercing on this side once before, and it was at a really sharp angle that I just kind of didn't enjoy, and I was sticking it out, and I was like, this is fine. But after a month, it got a bump. I'm not sure why. I don't know if it was because of the really sharp angle, but either way, I was like, it's not worth it. I don't like it. The angle's not right for me. So I took it out. If it's gonna irritate you for the rest of your life, it's your face. Take it out and get it redone in the spot you want. Or just get a new one in the spot that you want if you want to keep your investment in this one. But on the other part, they say, I got it almost 2 months ago and I want to change it to a hoop. If you're going to keep this piercing and you got it only 2 months ago, definitely your piercing is not ready to change to a hoop yet. Piercings take, at least at my piercer and at most APP approved piercing establishments. For most piercers, I think, that are APP members, I think most of them would suggest waiting till the 6-month mark to change to a hoop. The reason being is the healing. It takes 6 to 9 months, I think, for a nostril piercing to heal. Maybe 6 months to a year. It takes a long time. This is cartilage, just like your ears. It's cartilage. It's going to take a while to heal. It doesn't heal up in 2 months. And if you change to a hoop after 2 months, you're just opening yourself to irritation. Hoops move a lot. They can spin into your nose. A lot of times, especially if you're changing to a hoop at home, you don't know what size you need. If your nose is still swollen even a little bit, even it could be swelling that you don't notice, because a lot of times nostrils swell inside the nose. So you could have swelling that you don't even realize. If you're gonna put a ring in a piercing that's unhealed, you need to know the proper diameter. If your nose is 5/16 of an inch fat, you need a ring that's twice the diameter of that, because you need as straight of a path through the piercing as possible. So if the ring is 1/4 of an inch and your nose is 1/4 of an inch in length, the curves of the ring, the diameter of the ring is 1/4 of an inch, so the curves are going to pull down, the curves are going to pull down on your piercing and cause irritation, which is very likely to lead to a bump, especially in nostril piercings. And I think a majority of people putting rings in nostril piercings want that snug look. If you change to a hoop now, you're going to have, most likely you're going to have a ring that is much, much larger than you want, than is even aesthetically pleasing. I assume most people don't want really big hoops. Some people do. It's a look. I'm not judging either way. I'm just saying most people want snug hoops. Odds are you're not going to like the size of the hoop that you would need to properly fit this piercing at the moment. So definitely, if you keep the piercing, leave it for at least till 4 months. Please, till 4 months. My piercer won't change you to a hoop until 6 months minimum. And even then, before they bring you back, they hear you want to change your nostril piercing. They ask you, when was it pierced? If it was at least 6 months ago, then they have a piercer come out to evaluate the tissue. Does it look swollen? Does it look ready for a hoop? If it's obviously not, they'll tell you, hey, you're not ready. If it's up for debate, they'll take you back and they'll evaluate your tissue. If you're still swelling, they'll probably tell you to keep that straight post in for longer, and they're just looking out for you. So really keep a straight post in until, I would say, a minimum of 6 months. But if you really need to change it earlier, don't change it at 2 months, maybe 4. You want to give your body a chance to heal it as much as possible before you potentially set back the healing and have to start the healing all over again. Belly button pierced crooked and off center. I got my belly button pierced Saturday, and when I got home, I immediately noticed it wasn't center. Just by looking down at it, I could see it was crooked. The jewel was facing inward rather than out, and the bar was curving too. I contacted my piercer, and she said she re-pierced it again at, she said she'd re-pierce it again at no extra cost. So I took it out Monday, and I'm letting it heal. I'm really nervous though. I got my septum pierced at the same place, no problem, but by a different piercer. But this is my first time getting pierced by the other. I'm worried about the healing also if she does it correct the second time. I don't want to spend another $65, but I don't want it to waste. So for this one, I'd say one thing that you can do is you could probably call the place and ask to speak to a manager and ask if you can get it re-pierced by the other piercer if they have 2 piercers on duty. Now, I don't know if the first piercer left and there's only 1 piercer, I'm not sure, but if there is the second piercer still there, you could probably ask specifically for that one to say, hey, this person messed up and I don't trust them anymore, but I do trust this other person. Can I get it redone for free with them? And if they're a good place, I would imagine they would be accommodating if they were already offering a second re-piercing. If they were already offering a re-piercing for free. A second thing I'm going to say is, how did you choose this piercer? Is this a good piercer? Did you find them through Instagram and you know that they use really good quality jewelry? Are they an APP member? Do they know what they're doing? Does it seem like they have good quality jewelry and good practices besides that? Because people are human, they make mistakes. Even the best piercer has a potential to make a mistake. That's just what you get with something that humans do. There's a human error in everything. So it's definitely possible that it was just a mistake and she'll do better the next time. I would say if you trust the place and you originally trusted the piercer because you already vetted them and figured out that they were a good piercer, I would just go back and let them have another shot at it. On the other hand, if they don't let you do that and you think, hey, maybe I could get a better experience somewhere else, I think it would probably be worth the money to get it redone somewhere else. Now, it's your choice, but you did already take the piercing out, so there's no saving it at this point. It's your option for what do you feel comfortable with. Are you worth risking, if you think the piercer's not good, are you worth risking a crooked piercing again? Or do you value yourself more and feel like, hey, I don't trust that, I don't want to put myself through that again, I don't want to have the potential for more scarring? You can go ahead and search and look for a better piercer. You'll be foregoing that free piercing, but perhaps you can get an even better piercing that's going to actually turn out well next time. And that's up for you. That's up to you to decide, because I don't know what piercer you're going to, if they're good or not. Another thing I'm going to add that's potentially something you may not have thought about. So you said that it looked crooked once you got home is when you realized that it was crooked. So there's a thing that's called swelling when you get piercings. A lot of times when you get a piercing, they mark you. I hope that this piercer marked you and showed you where it was going to be. I assume when you looked at the mirror that the piercing marking looked straight. And I assume that after you were pierced, you were able to look in the mirror and hopefully it looks straight. Now, I understand the adrenaline pumping through you, you just got pierced. You might not have noticed or been a little too excited to really notice that it was crooked or not. But if it looked straight when you were at the piercing place, odds are it's a straight piercing, but it could be just swelling. Swelling could make piercings look so wonky and off-center. People get lip piercings directly in the middle, and then as it's healing and swells up, it tilts to the side, and they're like, oh my gosh, it's swelling. Same thing with nostril piercings. They can start looking a little bit wonky. I know you already took the piercing out, But next time, or a stranger out there, if that happens to you, if you come home and suddenly you notice, hey, it looks a little bit crooked, don't freak out. Don't take the piercing out. Leave the piercing in for a couple months. Give it time. Usually piercings take around probably 6 to 8 weeks to fully settle down on the initial swelling, and then evaluate it. Once that initial swelling goes down, take a look in the mirror and ask yourself if it looks straight. If it looks a little bit off, is it better than it was before? Are you comfortable with healing it further than this? Now, usually, as long as you were doing proper cleaning and aftercare, if you took a piercing out after only 1 or 2 months, there would be no marking. Like I said, my nostril piercing that I had on this side, I took out after just over a month, and it healed up. No evidence that I ever had a piercing, even with the slight bump that was there. You'd never know that I had a piercing there before this one. It wasn't pierced in the same spot. Well, maybe, but I really genuinely could not tell where that first piercing was. I'd say if you already have a piercing and you think it's a little bit crooked, but you thought it was straight at first, just wait it out. Wait it out a couple of months. Wait till the swelling settles down, and then see if it's still crooked. Now, for my belly piercing, it was actually pierced crooked, and as soon as I stood up from the chair, I noticed that it was curved, but obviously I'm a freaking shy person, and I wasn't so like kooky about things, so I just left it. That's when I could have been like, hey, it's right here right now. I'm still at the place where I got the piercing. I could have said, hey, I'm not going to pay for this right now. I'll come back to get it re-pierced or something like that. You know what I mean? But that was in the shop. If you already went home before you realize that the piercing's crooked, it's very, very possible that it's just swelling that's making it crooked. So don't give up on your piercings very quickly if you think it looks a little bit wonky, especially if you thought it was straight from the start. Okay, this is going to be the last one. Problems with helix piercing. Hello, I don't know if this is the right place for this, but I'm really hoping so. I got a lower helix piercing on my left ear last Friday, and it was fine. Everything was good until the last 2 days. It started when I kept irritating it by taking off my mask too roughly, but now it's red, swollen, hot, and throbbing constantly. If you have a new piercing, you have to take care of it. We're wearing masks, things happen, it snags. Be careful. If you want your piercing to be successfully healing, be careful when you take off your mask. Usually I'll take off the mask from the other ear. That way it won't be tight on the ear with the fresh piercing, and I can loosely take it off instead of a tight strap that I'm pulling at. So if you got a fresh piercing in the pandemic, mask snagging is obviously gonna happen and unavoidable, but this wording, taking off my mask too roughly, be diligent and be careful when you're taking off your mask. Like just like putting on a shirt every day. Like the shirt hole rubs my freaking ears. I don't just roughly put a shirt on, even without a face mask. You take care to avoid your piercing if you want your piercing to not be irritated, because something like roughly taking off a face mask is definitely going to irritate it, and that's just going to set you up for failure, obviously. Okay, but obviously they know that. But in case you don't know, but whatever. Anyway, no. But now, started when I kept irritating it by taking off my mask too roughly, but now it's red, swollen, hot, and throbbing constantly. Using the solution I got from the piercer, I've been disinfecting it 2 and recently 3 times a day, and have been minimally touching it. Okay, so I guess 3 times is a lot of people's limit for cleaning a piercing. Personally, I would only stick to 2 times. The more you touch and clean it, the more irritation, the more contact that you're having on the piercing. When you start going up from 2 times of cleaning a day, you're just introducing more irritation than the piercing needs. Basically, I only clean my piercings 1 time a day because I'm a lazy bum and I'm terrible, but it's better to not irritate your piercing too much. So 3 times a day is really pushing it, especially in my personal opinion, especially since your piercing's already irritated. Washing it more is not going to make it less irritated. If it's crusty for a reason. Leave them on there till the time you have to clean it. Don't just keep cleaning it to get them off. I'm really hoping this isn't an infection. I don't know how it could be since I've been taking very good care of it. I'd beg to differ if you were roughly taking your face mask off. Anyway, I'm just like, I do have problems with my immune system attacking my nerves. It flared up a few days ago in my neck and head area, so could that be related? Absolutely. Usually immune issues have a lot to do with inflammation, so anytime your immune system acts up or anything, like if you get sick, if you're on your period, I don't know if that's an immune response, but things like that happen in our bodies, and that just causes your piercings to be grumpy. They get a little extra crusty, and that's normal and fine, and just try to baby them as much as you can. That doesn't mean clean them more often, but treat them nicer and make sure you're being a little bit gentler when you're doing your everyday thing. Honestly, I'm just really hoping it's not infected. I don't want to have to take it out and pierce it again once it's healed. Any ideas what's happening or any tips what I should do? Okay, you got your piercing less than a week ago. It's gonna still be really swollen. A lot of times when you get piercings, it'll be fine and look perfect for a few weeks, and then suddenly a couple weeks in, it'll get really red and grumpy and the swelling sets in. That happened with my most recent piercing. It was fine for a couple weeks, and then all of a sudden my ear was just swollen and painful. My little nodes in the back of my ear were like a little swollen up, and that just happens anytime, like when I got my coin slot and stuff. It's just trauma to the area your body's trying to help. I also think I get inflamed a lot, so that's probably why that happens. It's just your body trying to heal because you had a trauma. So if you got your piercing less than a week ago, it's definitely possible that it basically just started to swell, and the already very fresh and swelling piercing mixed with roughly taking off a face mask, any snagging on a fresh piercing is going to make it really sore. It probably already would have been It probably already would have been sore without snagging anything on it. So the snagging mixed with the very fresh piercing, it's already in the inflammatory stage. It's gonna swell up a lot more and get a lot more sore. I can't tell you if it's an infection. There's definitely no photos, and I'm definitely not a doctor or a piercer. Swollen, hot, and throbbing constantly. But you didn't say anything about discharge. I would assume that an infected piercing has a lot of discharge. It would be extremely weepy. There would definitely be pus and things like that. So if it's just a little bit of swelling, you could probably baby it for a few days. Treat it well. You probably only need 2 cleanings a day. I hope you're cleaning it with the right materials. No rubbing alcohol. Not too much salt in your sea salt. Just use saline and spray it on and leave it only twice a day. Max. I wouldn't do 3 times a day. It doesn't help your ear not be swollen. If your ear is really red and swollen, something that could help it cool it down, quite literally, is a cool compress. You can use cool saline solution and rest it on your ear, and that'll cool off inflammation, similar to putting an ice pack. If you hit your knee or something, the ice will cool down the area and help relax the tissue. So putting some cool saline solution, like even like a cool glass of water, doesn't even have to be saline, just something cool to rinse over your ear, will help cool and relax down that inflammatory response. You could also probably take some sort of anti-inflammatory meds if you're able to. I tend to do that if I get a little bit swollen, and that just helps cut back some of your immune response to the swelling, in my personal experience. I'm not a doctor though, so do what your doctor or piercer says, quite literally, for any of these things. But basically, as long as it's not swelling over the bar, if it's swelled to the length of the bar, you might want to get a longer bar. You're definitely going to want to stop taking your mask off roughly. Be very, very careful. Literally take it off gently with your fingers, specifically to avoid the piercing. Don't just take it off and assume it's going to be fine. Like, literally guide the string around your piercing. Avoid the trauma, especially since it's so new. I'm sure it'll get past this stage, but if you keep taking your mask off roughly, you're going to get irritation bumps, and you're probably going to end up having to retire the piercing if you keep causing trauma like that. But I really do think the taking the mask off roughly, and then the problems with your immune system that flared up recently, healing a piercing, it takes your immune system to help start healing the tissue. So if an immune system, if some sort of problem with your immune system started acting up recently, it is definitely possible that that is the reason why it's the mixture of all three, quite literally. First, your piercing's already at the inflammatory stage of healing. It's going to be swollen regardless of what you do to it. It's unavoidable. The next is the roughly pulling off the mask. Roughly pulling on any piercing that's not healed is going to make it swell and get sore, especially during the inflammatory stage. And then your immune system, it's a little bit weak right now. If it's flaring up, that's going to cause any piercings that you have that are healing, it's going to cause them to swell up more. So especially this piercing has so much stacked against it. In my opinion, the best thing that could help with that is a cool water bath. Nothing feels better on a swollen and inflamed piercing than a nice cool water bath. It helps soothe it, especially if it's like throbbing. But if it's really excessively weepy or throbbing, if you don't have enough room on the bar, I would definitely go to your piercer and ask for advice. Definitely try to get a longer bar if there's not enough room for the swelling. And potentially, if there's a lot of like pus, or if it's extremely red, go to a doctor to get treatment. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to remove the piercing. It depends on what's going on with your ear. You haven't given us a photo, so I can't really speak on that. Plus, I'm not a doctor, so I can't really speak on infections. Go to your doctor if you think you need to get an infection treated, because infections in your ear can be extremely horrific. It can just destroy your ear, so definitely don't want to play with that. Anyway, I think that's all I'm gonna do for today. I hope you liked this video. Let me know what you thought down in the comments below. I figured I would do these Reddit reacts because I've been watching some anti-MLM stuff where people just read straight up emails, like paragraphs and paragraphs, and then some people read Reddit stuff, and I just enjoy watching that. And I thought, hey, I love piercings, so maybe people would love to see some piercing stuff. Maybe people would love to see some reacting to Reddit piercing stuff. So let me know any other topics. I can read any of the r/slashes you want. And until next time, I love ya. Wait, huh? Until next time, I love ya. See you in the next one. Bye! Okay. That was weird.